There is a word that has been waiting for you for 2,000 years. Not because it was lost, but because the world was not yet ready to receive it. Jesus did not speak it in Greek. He did not speak it in Latin. He spoke it in Aramaic, the ancient living tongue of heaven. Telangua, his Father breathed into creation from the very first moment. And when he spoke this word, something happened that no medicine, no therapy, and no human ritual had ever achieved. Not outside the person. Inside them, walls that had stood for decades collapsed in seconds. Grief buried under years of silence rose and dissolved like morning mist. Anger with no name, pain with no origin, weight with no explanation gone. That word is Ephatha. And today, for the first time, you are going to understand exactly what it means, why Jesus chose it, and why it was always meant for you. Most people who have read the Gospel of Mark have passed over this moment without truly stopping. In chapter 7, verse 34, Jesus stands before a man who cannot hear and cannot speak. The crowd watches. The disciples wait, and Jesus does something no one expected. He looks up to heaven, sighs deeply, and speaks a single word directly into the man's closed ears. That word is Ephatha. It is not a prayer. It is not a petition to the Father. It is a command, a direct, authoritative declaration spoken from the eternal dimension into the physical one. And Scripture records that immediately the man's ears were opened and his tongue was released. Now here is what most translations do not tell you. Ephatha comes from the Aramaic root ethpita, and it carries a meaning far richer than the English word open. In Aramaic, to be opened is not simply to have a door unlocked. T means to be made accessible, to be brought back into flow, to be restored to the state of your original design. It implies that something was sealed, not by accident, but by force. Something pressed closed what was always meant to remain open. And Jesus, speaking with the full authority of the Creator, reversed that force in a single breath. This is why this word matters so deeply for your emotional life. Trapped emotions are not simply feelings you have chosen to ignore. They are sealed chambers inside your spiritual and emotional body. Grief that was too overwhelming to process. Rage that had nowhere safe to go. Fear that found no acceptable exit. Over time, these energies compress and harden, forming inner barriers, and those barriers begin to shape your entire reality. Your relationships, your health, your capacity to receive love, joy, and abundance. Ephatha was not spoken only for one man on one day. It was spoken as a living demonstration of the divine authority within the voice of Jesus, an authority that knows exactly where your sealed places are and moves precisely to open them. Understanding these frequencies is the first step, but mastering their vibration in your daily life is where the true miracle happens. I receive many messages asking for the correct pronunciation and sequence of these sounds, so I have prepared the sacred guides to help you bridge this gap. You can find the link pinned in the comments to begin your practical journey today. In the world of Jesus, the human being was understood very differently than modern psychology describes. The ancient Aramaic framework did not separate the mind from the heart or the spirit from the body. Everything was interconnected. A living web of energy, breath, and intention woven together by the Creator from the first moment of life. The Aramaic word for heart, liba, referred not just to an organ, but to the seat of will, desire, perception, and emotion all at once. It was the throne of the entire inner life. And when something wounded the liba, it did not simply bruise, it closed. The protective instinct of the inner self created a covering over the wound, sealing it away from the field of conscious experience. This closing is not metaphorical. The Aramaic understanding of human nature recognized that emotional wounds produce literal spiritual contractions. When trauma enters the field of the heart and finds no release, it does not disappear. It folds inward. It creates a layer of protection that, over time, becomes a permanent barrier, a seal. You can recognize these seals in your own life. They appear as the subjects you cannot speak about without your throat tightening, the memories that surface without any invitation, the reactions that feel far larger than the moment that triggered them. These are not character flaws. They are sealed chambers. and Ephatha was spoken precisely to address them. What Jesus demonstrated with that single Aramaic word was a complete spiritual technology. He did not analyze the man's psychological history. He did not guide him through stages of therapeutic processing. He spoke directly into the seal and commanded it open. This reveals something profound about the nature of divine authority and the mechanics of emotional healing. The command works not through intellectual understanding but through resonance, the sound, the breath, the sacred intention behind. Ephatha, all of it, carries a frequency that moves through the body's sealed chambers and disrupts the contraction at its very source. That is the ancient method. That is the living way of Jesus. If this teaching is stirring a deep resonance in your heart, it is a sign that your soul is ready to return to its original blueprint. To support you in this transition, my guides explain the layers of meaning behind the first sacred words, offering you a path to clear the interference of the world. The link to access these tools is waiting for you in the pinned comment. Before Jesus spoke Ephatha, Scripture records that he did something most commentators rush past. He sighed. In the original text, the word used to describe this sigh is stenazo, a groan from deep within, a sound of spirit pressing against the weight of a broken world. This was not frustration. This was not impatience. This was the breath of heaven pressing against the seal of human suffering. It matters enormously, because in the ancient Aramaic tradition, breath is not simply air. Breath is ruah, the living spirit of God moving through the vessel of the human voice. When Jesus sighed before commanding Ephatha, he was charging the atmosphere with divine intention. He was drawing the ruah, the sacred breath, into alignment with the will of the Creator. In that moment, every sealed emotion, every buried wound, every contracted place inside the man was already beginning to respond. The breath preceded the word, because breath is the carrier. It is the frequency upon which the command rides. This is why in Aramaic spiritual practice, the relationship between breath and spoken intention is considered foundational. You cannot speak healing into existence without first breathing it there. This truth has direct implications for how Ephatha is meant to function in your life today. The command is not a phrase to be spoken carelessly. It is an act of sacred alignment, breath, then intention, then sound. When you approach this word with the same reverence that Jesus demonstrated, something shifts in your inner atmosphere before you even open your mouth. The sealed places inside you respond to the posture of the one who approaches. They sense the difference between intellectual curiosity and genuine hunger for freedom. This is why Jesus looked upward before he acted. He was positioning his entire being in the direction of the source. That positioning is the beginning of every true release. There are 3 conditions that Jesus established before every act of divine authority, and all 3 are visible in the moment he spoke Ephatha. He first is separation. Scripture records that Jesus took the man aside, away from the crowd. In Aramaic culture, this act was deeply symbolic. The crowd represents noise, the collective agreements of fear, doubt, and limitation that press upon the individual and reinforce their sealed condition. By removing the man from that field, Jesus was creating the interior silence necessary for a sealed place to open safely. You cannot receive a command of this magnitude while still being compressed by the noise and energy of those who do not yet believe in your freedom. The second condition is touch. Jesus placed his fingers in the man's ears and touched his tongue with care. In the Aramaic world, touch was understood as a transfer of spiritual reality, not symbolic, but functional. The body holds memory in its tissues, and the sealed emotions you carry are not simply spiritual abstractions. They live in the tension of your jaw, the constriction of your throat, the heaviness behind your sternum. Jesus touched the places where the seals were physically expressed, because healing in the Aramaic understanding is always whole spirit, soul, and body reached simultaneously, not in sequence. The third condition is upward orientation. Jesus looked up to heaven before he spoke. This is the act of true return, the alignment of the human will with the divine will, the repositioning of the self in the direction of the source. When you orient yourself toward the Father before you speak Ephatha, you are not performing a ritual. You are declaring, before a single sound is made, that you are not operating from your wounded self, but from your original divine design. From that position, separated from noise, touching your sealed places with intention, and oriented toward heaven, The command Ephatha releases its full, ancient power inside you. Now let us move directly to the specific territories where Ephatha operates most powerfully. This command does not work in theory. It works inside sealed places that long experience has created in you, and three appear most consistently among those who carry the deepest wounds. The first is grief that was never permitted to complete itself. Grief is designed by the Creator to move in waves, to crest and ultimately resolve into a form of love that transcends loss. But when grief is interrupted before completion, it creates a chamber of unfinished mourning that no new joy can fully penetrate, and from inside that chamber, every future loss arrives amplified. The second is shame. Shame is perhaps the most resistant of all sealed emotions, because shame does not believe it deserves to be opened. It tells you that what is inside the sealed chamber is too broken, too wrong, too unacceptable to bring into the light. This is the lie that shame constructs as its own fortress, and it is precisely into this fortress that Ephatha was always designed to speak. Jesus never turned away from the sealed and the shamed. He went toward them. He touched them. He commanded them open, not after they had made themselves presentable, but exactly as they were. The word carries within it the same authority that moves toward you now, not away. The third is unprocessed fear. Fear, in the Aramaic understanding, is not the enemy of faith. It is the beginning of misaligned faith. Fear believes in a future, but it believes in the wrong one. When fear has lived inside you long enough without resolution, it calcifies into a permanent background frequency, a low, constant hum that tells you nothing is safe, nothing will hold, nothing good will last. Ephatha does not debate this frequency. It does not reason with the fear or negotiate with the lie. It commands the sealed place from which that fear broadcasts to open, and in the opening, the light of the Ruha floods in, and what was locked begins to breathe again. Everything you have heard today is a single thread drawn from a vast and ancient tapestry. Ephatha is not a word from a forgotten past. It is a living sound, a command that Jesus spoke in Aramaic with the full authority of heaven, and that authority has never expired. Every sealed place inside you, every chamber of unfinished grief, every fortress of shame, every frozen frequency of fear, exists within the hearing range of this word. The question is not whether Ephatha holds the power to open them. The question is whether you are ready to be opened. Readiness does not mean the absence of doubt. It does not mean perfect understanding or flawless belief. In the Aramaic tradition, readiness is simply the turning of the face toward the source. It is the active orientation of saying, with your breath and your posture and your inner declaration, I am willing to be made accessible again. I am willing to let what has been sealed return to flow. I am willing to receive the restoration that Jesus demonstrated in that ancient moment, and that he still speaks into the lives of all who turn to hear it. The teaching of Ephatha does not end when this video ends. It begins. It begins the moment you carry this word into your breath, into your stillness, into the places inside you that have waited in silence for something to finally give them permission to open. And that permission was granted 2,000 years ago, in a sigh and a command spoken beside a man who could not hear, and suddenly could. That same voice is speaking over your sealed places right now. Visit Divine Light Academy at the link below to access my complete guides and start your journey into the living language of the Masters. But before you go, I want to hear from you. What did you feel during this session? Comment I received to seal this message. Below, if you felt a shift in your energy today. We read every response, and your testimony strengthens this entire community of light. Right now, before you close this video, come to the comments and tell us, what did you feel? What shifted? We read every single response. And if this teaching found you today, subscribe to this channel. Every week we go deeper into the ancient frequency codes that were always meant to be yours. We are just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation.